Now, what would you say if I told you that your garden was underperforming? Not because of pH or watering issues, but because of you. Today, I'm breaking down the advanced mistakes that are secretly killing your yields, even if you're a pretty experienced grower. For the most part, intermediate growers, they're dialed in when it comes to their overall temps and humidity. But what they may not realize is that those plants are constantly living in microclimates, especially in tents with a lot of lights or oscillating fans. Just think of it this way. You may have a nice, dense top canopy layer, and the top of that canopy may be reading in at about 84 degrees Fahrenheit with about 50% RH, while the lower parts are struggling at about 75% Fahrenheit and about 70% RH. And obviously that's a problem, because what's up here has a completely different climate and environment to down here. Now, in certain situations, especially like if you're later on in flower, this can cause a lot of issues. This simple imbalance can lead to things like foxtailing, fluffy lower flowers, inconsistent trichome development, and just an overall poorly developed plant with poor yields. Luckily, this is a quick fix. You can use things like these little thermometers or even little mini hygrometers like these, and these will really help you to dial in what's happening in those little microclimates. Just pop a few of them at different places in your grow tent. Hang a couple of them above the canopy and hang one or two of them below the canopy. You can even stick a couple in that dense canopy if things are really thick. And by using multiple thermometers or hygrometers at different levels, that allows you to really dial in what's going on with those different microclimates. Ooh, now another thing that you guys can do to avoid microclimates is just toss a few more oscillating fans in there. Really simple stuff. A low intensity oscillating fan can add nice airflow under that canopy. Because like I said, most intermediate growers already have oscillating fans set up above the canopy, but under canopy oscillating fans can really help as well. Yo guys, that new iCanFAM line is live. Now yo, this is super limited, super exclusive, only 62 packs, all of them numbered, so guys, make sure to get in and grab them. We'll also be hooking you guys up with some of these exclusive custom growth bags as long as these packs are still in stock. Once they're gone, they're gone. Like I said guys, only 62 of them, so make sure you guys grab them. Don't snooze on them. I want to make sure you guys get in on this new fam line because it's absolute fire. Don't snooze on them. You guys will get the good. I promise you. Much love, fam. Now, another really simple thing that you guys can do to manage microclimates is grab some of these little trimmers and defoliate strategically. And what that does is allow you to have a little bit more transpiration and airflow. In other words, the lower parts of the canopy won't be so thick and you can have some nice airflow circulating through there, and that avoids any of those microclimates from developing. Now, I've mentioned microclimates a few times already. Why is it so bad? It's simple. In those microclimates, you can get little pockets of stale air that can be really humid and really low in temperature or really high in temperature, and those things can cause a lot of issues like pest development, mold, bud rot. All these things are really bad for your plants, especially later on in flower. Now let's move straight on to the second mistake, guys, and that is overtraining your plants late in veg or early on in flower. Low stress training is great, don't get me wrong. I do it all the time and I use a bunch of these LST clips. Use the code icanthc and you'll get a nice little discount on the bud trainer clips. Now, low stress training is great. Plant manipulation really works, but too much plant manipulation later on in veg or early on in flower, especially during that pre-flower stretch, can throw your plant into what's called survival mode. And in situations like that, when your plant's trying to transition into flower and you really stress it out, it's like, what the hell is really going on? I just need to do everything I can to survive. And in those situations, you may see some negative effects. You may literally think that you're optimizing yield, but instead you're delaying the flower initiation, you're stalling some of that vertical growth, which is fine if you're really trying to spread things out, but causing hormonal stress at that point can lower some of the THC and terpene output. Now that's something I've seen when I was doing different bits of research, so let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below. Now again, this is an easy fix. All you gotta do is time your training and sort of cut it off a couple weeks before you flip those plants into flower. And again, if you do flip your plants into flower and you need to do a little bit of training, just be a little bit more gentle than you would during veg. But the main point here is, guys, to let those plants focus on bud development and not recovery, especially during that transition period. Now post flipping to flower, defoliation should be a little bit more light and targeted, and in those situations you stress the plants out a little bit less, so that way it can really focus on that flower development. Now for me, there are times when I may have to train my plants later on in flower, but that's only if things are getting too close to the light or if it's an absolute emergency. But for the most part, once I flip my ladies, I don't do a whole lot of training after that. Now flower time is really fun, especially if you're running some new genetics. It's that point in time when you can see what's going to come of these new genetics. And if you want to get some exclusive fire genetics and get your mailbox burnt down, then join the iCan VIP Bean Club. We got exclusive packs going out to VIPs all the time, so make sure you get in. And if you want to grab some of those packs, but you're not in the iCan VIP Bean Club, then use the code icanthc. Actually, I think there's a special code. Use the code LEGAL. For all you guys that are checked into the Legal News Network, you guys will get a nice little discount. Now, the third mistake that's really hurting your yields, and this is a big one, guys, is too much nitrogen in early flower. Now, yes, your plants love nitrogen in veg, and a lot of you guys know that you wean off as you transition into flower. But holding on to those high nitrogen nutes early on in flower, especially in week 1 or week 2 of flower, will absolutely kill your plant's potential. If you continue going hard with those veg nutes right after you flip, you may notice some symptoms like really dark green leaves, and that's because of that excess chlorophyll, and you can run into light burn risk. On top of that, you'll end up with weaker bud size and low resin production, and also a delayed transition into bloom. And you guys don't want to delay your transition into flower. Now, this can be especially bad and problematic for some of those genetics that have shorter flowering times, because in those situations, every single week counts. You're on a schedule. Now, that being said, there's also an easy fix to this. You can just transition into your bloom nutrients just about 5 or 7 days after flip. Don't wait too long to get out of the veg and into the bloom. Now, you can also monitor the leaf color and the plant stretch. And I'm not just talking about the calendar days, but the overall appearance of the plant and how things are progressing as it transitions from veg into flower. And as a lot of you guys would already know, transition slowly and gradually from the nitrogen into more phosphorus and potassium, because your ladies really love that during flower. And that's exactly why the iCan Organics bundles work so great, because the veg pack and the flower power, they play well together, and they also break down slowly. So by the time you're actually finishing and ready to flip, you don't need to use a whole lot of the veg pack. You can use a little bit and transition to the flower power. And the flower power, I actually use a little bit before I flip, so the plants are getting used to it and it's already starting to break down. So use some of the iCan bundles, man. The veg pack and the flower power, amazing stuff. And you can also try some of the Sea Blast, fantastic. Use the code icanthc, all legal, and you get a nice little deal on it. But no matter what nutrients you're using, the point is gradually wean them off of the end, the nitrogen, the nipple, and green them onto the phosphorus and potassium, because that's what they love in flower. Now, the fourth mistake that can absolutely affect your yields is not matching your light intensity to the stage of growth that you're in. Now, a lot of you guys already have the latest tech when it comes to grow gear. The best LED lights, the best HPS lights, the best HID lights, you guys have got it all. But are you adjusting your PPFD to match your plant stage of growth? That's the question you gotta be asking yourself. Now, there's a chart that you guys can use that'll help you dial in your PPFD. But for the most part, a lot of growers out there are just blasting those seedlings with way too much light, or they run an insanely low PPFD early on in flower and miss that entire stretch window completely, which is absolutely crazy. And again, the fix is pretty simple for that. Just use a par meter or an app. There's an app called Photon, which is free. You can give that a try. And in veg, you want to aim for about 300 to 500 PPFD. During early flower, you want to up that a little bit to about 600 to 800 PPFD. And mid to late flower, you want to push for about 900 to 1000 PPFD if your environment supports it. Now, those are just general guidelines. You guys may want to adjust that depending on your environment and your strain and so forth, and that's absolutely fine. But the point here is that if you mess up your light intensity, you can shock your plants, cause stretch or lack of stretch thereof, and you can just under-deliver on some of those dense, nice, sticky flowers that everyone wants at the end of harvest. Now look, if you're still dealing with airy buds, underwhelming harvest, or just weak trichome development, try tweaking some of these things that I mentioned in this video. It's probably not just your soil or water that are causing you those issues. It's very likely these subtle mistakes that creep into your harvest and your grows, especially if you got a few runs under your belt and you've been growing for quite a few years now. So if you've been facing trouble in your recent harvest, if you just fixed one of these, your next harvest will be your best, I guarantee you. But drop it in the comments down below and let me know what you guys think are some big harvest killers, and in particular some yield killers. Some of those mistakes that creep in after you've been growing for a number of years. Some of those things that you used to do meticulously, but now you sort of just don't do it meticulously anymore and you find yourself in trouble. Drop it in the comments and let me know. Don't forget to join the iCan VIP Bean Club, try the iCan Organics. It'll work great. And if you want to find out more about growing that fire, then check out any episode on screen right now, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace, fam.